And good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Money in the Law, My FM 101.3 in the Holliston Hub. This is Money in the Law with your host, Jay Marston.
Yes.
From the Marston Law Group.
Good morning.
And I'm John Drohan from Main Effort Financial. And this is Tom Harmon from the Holliston Hub. So a lot of H's in there. Holliston Hub,
Harmon.
HCAT, Harmon.
Yeah, it's very,
so it's
very alliterative.
It's
as
H
they say.
heavy. It's
Yeah.
H heavy,
Yeah.
which is okay because we are from Holliston.
Yes,
so
we
that,
are. Yeah.
we see a lot of that H emblem around.
Yes, yes.
This is Money in the Law, which is the show where you learn about everything that you need to learn about with respect to money and your finances, as well as anything you need to learn about with respect to the law, mainly kind of that planning law, like that law that's going to get you, that's like the kind of it's almost like that golden bucket of gold at the end of the rainbow.
It's all about the planning,
Yeah,
baby. It's all
pot of
about
gold.
the planning.
Pot of gold is what I was looking for.
That's right. There you go. It's a long way to get there.
Right.
It's not March yet. It doesn't roll off yet. We're getting close. But we're not there yet.
Golden bucket of gold.
Golden bucket of gold. There you go. All right.
Is the pot made out of gold as
The whole
well?
thing's
Is
gold, huh?
everything
All right, that's
just
pretty good.
solid,
That's
right at the end of the rainbow.
Is the bowl made out of ice? Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah. Okay.
You'll never find. All right. So how are you today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
I feel like you're good. I feel like you.
I feel like I'm good. I'm a little rested. I was at a conference last week, so I didn't get a lot of rest at the conference. But now that I'm back and got worked that through the system,
This was that California conference you were telling
out
me
in
about.
beautiful Anaheim, rained for 3 days. Yep, Southern California.
I'm sorry. Am I feeling badly for you? Because if I recall, last week was winter showed up, right? And you just happened to miss it.
Yeah, I did miss it, which is unfortunate for a lot of folks. Not me, but anyway, yeah, I stepped out for that one.
Whew. Yeah, and that's where I said I had texted you, and this was on Saturday. I happened to be in your hometown, in the great town of Medford, and I'll tell you what, it was. It was cool. We were at Tufts University.
Yes,
we were
very nice.
It's a very, very Tufts, very exquisite and nice campus. We were there for my daughter was there, so I'm visiting her, and of course, when I walk out of the building, it's snowing and it's nasty, and I'm like, this is what I got to drive. And of course, Medford from here, the moon is closer than Medford.
Yes, it is. That's right.
And then throw some icy roads and some icy unplowed highways.
Yep.
Then so I'm like, oh, it's gonna. And I look at my GPS says, oh, it's gonna be an hour and 9 minutes, which is a flat out lie. That's an hour and 9 minutes in July.
As the crow flies, that's exactly right.
If I were in a helicopter,
not current conditions.
No, that's
right.
So of course I felt the overwhelming urge to tell you about it, and you're like, yeah, I'm in Cali, yo. I'm in Cali. I don't know. I'm not that. We got that. I'm in Cali at my conference.
At a conference. Learning, growing, expanding the mind.
Right. Well, for all the right reasons.
For all the
right reasons. Okay. All right. So what's new? Any news updates you need to tell me about? Anything going on?
No, I got nothing for you, buddy.
The office is good. The business
the office is good.
good.
The basement's drying out finally. We had a little run in there with the weather before that. We get all that rain.
Everybody's hanging on the edge of their seats about that.
I'm sure they are. Yeah, combine that with the heat kicking off on me, so that was nice. A couple of 50-degree days in the office there.
Heat kicking off like not working?
Yeah. That'll put a little pep in your step. You come in the morning.
Everybody bundle up.
Yeah, let's bundle up. That's absolutely right. That was great. But yeah, work through all those. Those are landlord issues.
And that's the kind of thing that you do. You're built. You're wired for that.
That's right. The price of admission. So that's all good. And we got one down out the door for school, and we got one more rolling out the door this week. You back to
we're
nest?
back to the nest is emptied out again, which is
one more.
Yeah, and there's like some good and bad. As we've talked about before, there's the it's sad. Everybody kind of is kind of back to their place. It was funny with one of them, and I'm not going to mention any names, although she's my middle child and she's the one who's my drama major. Not very dramatic, but not mentioning any names. We did have a conversation while she was home, and God bless her. The one thing, this is my Chloe. The one thing about her is there in her military mind, it is so crystal clear of where she needs to be. She's like, oh, I'm a drama major. I want to do acting and drama and stuff. Where else do I there's no other place for me than being in New York. Like New York, it's like
all the right reasons.
If I'm not in New York, I'm right. So we started, and this was tricky because we're getting like, you're home for break and it's a long break, and I'm getting that like, I really probably should get back to school a little early. And you're like, Oh, okay. It's one thing if you were like on some nice, kind of cool college campus, and maybe you had like a part-time job where there wasn't any financial. But let's go back to New York City for a week early. So it's like what? So kind of a week vacation in New York City with no class or anything like that.
Just get ready. Can you get ready?
Yeah.
You get settled in the dorm a little bit.
So this is my daughter, who, of course, So the answer that, of course, you'd expect that you think you're going to get is, you're right, Dad. You know what? I better not. Now, this is my daughter who doesn't. That's not the answer. The answer is why.
She wasn't asking. She was telling.
That's exactly right. I'm merely advising you that this is how it's going to go.
Giving you a heads up for my status, Dad.
But the best part of the conversation was she's like, "Listen, I need to get home," and I was like, "What? Wait a minute, but you are. This is your home. This is your home."
That switch flips.
And then once that switch, and then I tried to keep my cool as best I could, and of course, and inside I'm like, my heart is tearing and into shreds.
Yes.
And I'm like, but this is your home as well, right? And you try and celebrate.
Also your home, but okay. I mean, you remember back in the day, like, let's see, I hung out. I did the polite thing. I hung out with Mom and Dad. I got some home cooked meals. I did some laundry. I got a refill on the bank account. And, my work here is kind of done. I think it's time for me to go back where I do what I do.
Right. But it's a little bit different because you were kind of funding your own education at that point, right?
Yeah,
you were. So my instinct is like, wait a minute, you don't live there, and you are just going to school there. And if you were to live there, that would be an entirely different financial situation.
That's right. Totally different arrangement.
And then I say, how is that going to happen for you? And anyway, so we worked through it, and she's back at school.
Good.
Great. And she's happy, and she's where she. That's the thing. It's like you just want your kids to be where they need to be and be happy.
Hang with their people, be with their tribe. It's going to be, and this spring semester flies by.
Yeah.
They go back late. It's February. They get a week break in there. Next thing you know, it's April. Then it's like, whoa.
Yeah, spring is fast.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we have, which I didn't think about this. So remember, not long ago, we decided to get a dog. Which
was a great move on your part. Visionary genius that you are.
Well, to the person, everybody looked at me and was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing, what? Right? So, and then of course, you start to internalize that and you're like, what am I doing? Why did I do that? However, one of the things is that, which I didn't realize, is that the dog is the children, while they were home, they took to that dog, and the dog took to them. So now all of a sudden the kids are very interested in like their new doggy sister that they have.
Yeah.
So
once you bring it over the threshold, that's it. You own it.
That could be that, but that could be like another draw.
That could coax them home.
Another draw to get them home. Well, the dog wants to see you.
Yep, I'm sure that. Yeah, I'm not sure that would coax me home, but whatever.
The dog misses you.
Yeah. Okay. You see, keep us up to date on how that works, please.
Keep you posted.
Appreciate that.
All right. So what's on your mind today?
I got nothing for you.
I'm so glad you said that because I do.
Oh.
Yeah, because I do.
Why am I surprised?
I'm just
good.
Again, I offered you this, but this is something you want to talk about.
Always.
You know why? Because this is a realistic thing that in our practices we talk about this because you see it all the time. I mean, how often do you see somebody come in and like, hey, listen, so when we retired each of us retired from our civil jobs, we both have a pension. I also have a military pension, and we each have saved up $1 million in our 401k. What should we do? And you're like, wow, your retirement seems relatively easy.
Well, your first response is hold my calls.
Yeah.
That's your first response. Clear my calendar.
Well, but then you think about and people are like, oh, I'm really concerned, and you have they're like, I'm really concerned about this and about that. Of course, I mean that's the example of the person who to use your vernacular, they won the game.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
They won the game. So, how often do you see that? Not too often.
Well, they're a unicorn in the sense that it's funny, right? I'm sure, like you guys, when you sit down, and this is what we talk about on the show all the time. Like when you walk in and sit down with an investment advisor for the first time, right? This is all new to you, right? Mm-hmm. You've maybe Googled a bunch of stuff and you've looked at a bunch of stuff, but rest assured, right? A pretty decent financial advisor with a modicum of information can really get a sense of your story.
Yeah.
Right. And not because you're not special, not because you're not unique, right? But because there's only so many versions of this movie, right? Is kind of the idea, right? And we've talked about this on the show. There's always people that look, retirement is going to be an uphill battle, right? For a whole host of reasons, right? Things that we just you don't want to get into all these things, but whether it's job situations, financial situations, but it's going to be an uphill battle, right?
Yep.
And so you've seen those situations, and you've seen a lot of ones where people come in and it's like, look, money not an object for a whole host of reasons, right? And it's investments, it's a whole bunch of things. But yes, there are people that walk in the door that live in that wonderful world of not only do we have a pile of retirement money saved, but we have really good
strong
lifetime income.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's those people, and that when their concern is I don't want to mess this up, right? And for the right reason, because they probably worked very hard to kind of get to that point, and this I'm not saying that it's all earned. I mean,
well, it is on, and they could mess it up. I know we talk about them. They could mess it up because we haven't even had a conversation about income expectations, and people who have a lot of money tend to spend a lot of money. People who have really good income when they work tend to spend a lot of money, or they think they're going to spend at the same level in retirement. So there still needs to be a conversation. There's still work there.
Yep.
But all the pieces are there for a really successful outcome.
Yeah, and that's what we say. We say, listen, you're in, on the outset, right? Like in the opening of the meal, like at first glance, you guys are in really good shape.
Yep.
You're in really good shape. The question is, what do you, like you said, clarify what your expectations are, and let's see if we can meet those expectations, and then and frame this up. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's relatively easy. On the other side of that coin are how many times have you seen the people that come like, I got a late start. This happened. I had some bad luck. I had some unfortunate. I made some bad investments.
I got divorced.
I got exactly. I got hurt. I was injured. I was out of work for a while. So
sure.
So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about that other side, that person who comes in and how often have you heard them say, it's not going to matter. Like my retirement is never going to happen, or I have no concept of retirement because I'm just going to be a working for the rest of my life kind of guy.
Right.
And they kind of just blow it off and say that I don't need to do any planning.
And make no effort towards it. And you say to yourself, well, before we decide that it's not in the cards, let's see how far. Because again, it's still retirement. Mm-hmm. It's just a different version.
It's almost like you studied for the quiz, because I have all these notes right here. It's called late start retirement. It's almost like an article that was, I don't know, it was written by you and me.
Yeah, well, definitely you, because this is late start to the radio show, so your late start to retirement feeds right into it.
I wasn't that late today. I mean, again, for all you listeners, I'm sorry you can't see this, but there's something up with my hair today, and I don't know what it is.
Did you tell me you're late because you were fixing your hair this morning?
No,
I'm walking out of the show right now.
I don't spend a lot of time on my hair. And again, I'm glad that I'm not complaining about
it's
hair.
Obvious.
Right? Yeah. But today my hair I'm looking at it, I'm like,
Stop.
I'm like,
quit while you're ahead.
No, but it was weird today, right? And I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, does my hair look weird? And she's like, no. And I'm like, that's exactly what Jamie Oliver's wife said to her yesterday when he was on Good Morning America, and he looked terrible. So
let's go to a break from the Hair One Studios here in Milford, Mass.
Had a little swoop going. All right, so we're going to talk about
late start retirement
and how to and letting you that all hope is not lost.
Yeah, don't fret.
All hope is not lost.
There's a plan.
We're going to coach you through this. If you feel like you're a late starter, then Jay and I we're gonna hand carry you into peace of mind with respect to retirement. So
Got it. All
don't
right.
go anywhere. If you're driving, again, this might be the time you want to stop in the parking lot at Dunkin' Donuts, get yourself a cup of coffee,
get some notes,
and take some notes. And the other thing is, while you're taking notes, if you're taking them on your phone, don't be doing two things at once. Don't be texting your friends unless you text them saying, "Hey, turn on 101.3 right now," or anything like that. Yeah. All right. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Right back. And we're back, My FM 101.3, Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. Tom is on the bag. We're here at the My FM 101.3 Media Center, downtown Milford, Massachusetts, right here where it all happens, the hub of everything going on.
It's the J. Bryan Day Media Center.
Is that what it is?
Correctly.
Yeah, I think
is it
you're
still
right.
that? All right, well, as far as we know.
There
There you go, Jay Bry.
The advertising worked. I did reach out to them at one point. It's all good. It's all good.
It's all good. They didn't help, but it's all good.
It's all good. It's all good. I knew who to call. Who to call. The jingle was in my head. And we're talking getting late start on retirement. Late start on retirement.
Before we jump back in, instead of just as a jingle, so I happened to listen to Money in the Law this past Saturday. I was fortunate enough that I was driving in my car, and I'm like, it's 11 o'clock. I can listen to Money in the Law, and I was right, and so I was listening to Money in the Law. And when you talk about it, you forget about the jingle, but remember the great late Warren Zevon, and which is the Money in the Law jingle, which we shamelessly
absconded with, whatever you want to call it.
You know what? It's like we want the Warren Zevon estate to contact us.
There's a live Jimmy Buffett version of the jingle that we used at the beginning of the show, and it's got horns in it, and it's got a ton of energy, and I do love it. I got to tell you, I go back and forth. I love them both. I love them both equally. Like my kids, I love them both equally. Yep. That's exactly right.
Right, but one was born before the other. Right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Found one before the other. That's right.
You got to kind of do it. All right. So we're talking about late retirement. I have some notes. That I took here in thinking about this. And the first question you ask is like, and it may not even be from a planning standpoint. Sure. It may not even be it's not a definitive question or defining question, I guess is a better word, but it's an important question to understand. And in any situation, like when someone says to me, I have $40,000 of credit card debt, and I'll say, where did that come from? Like what is that from? So the why of why you're a late start, that's important in the sense that it can give like the planner a kind of an understanding of kind of what we're dealing with, and
sure.
and it's not to kind of make somebody feel bad or to be like to kind of remind them of where they zigged when they should have zagged or anything like that. But it's important to kind of have an understanding of what it is, like how we got to this point, and it could be nothing more than I worked for this company, and this is how much money I made, and I live in Milford, Massachusetts, and this is how much it costs to live, and I just wasn't able to save.
Well, people will tell you. I mean, they come in all the time and they say, look, my retirement was secondary to me making sure that my kids got a good education.
Sure.
Right? And they went to great schools, and I paid for all of them, and my kids had no college debt, and that was my priority. At that point in my life, that was my priority, and I knew I was doing it to the detriment of my retirement. The kids are squared away. I did it. Everybody has reasons why they did it. Yeah. I did it because my family was unable to do it for me. I mean, it meant something, and so that's the path that they chose. Right? Yeah. So you say, okay, that's great. Let's figure it out. You know, what we like to do is I like to say to somebody, okay, if you think your retirement it's off the rails or you're getting a late start, the first thing I would say to somebody is, all right, forget the timing of it. Tell me what your retirement, your ideal retirement looks like.
Yep.
Right?
What's that picture look like?
Because the reason I say it is because we might not be that off, right? They might say, well, I'm never going to not work. I've been a worker my whole life, and I love working, and I want to go do something.
You're a worker.
And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. If you're a worker, we can do that.
This is easy.
We can do this.
You can work right here.
This could get easier, right?
Yeah.
So then it becomes, because the answer, if somebody says, look, I never ever thought I would stop working, and I don't plan on to stop working unless my health takes a turn and I can't. Well, that person's idea of a successful or a not so successful retirement is completely different from the person who says to you, John, I am woefully underprepared for retirement, and retirement for me means never working. Yeah. Those are two different visions.
Yeah. Yeah, and getting like, you know, the planner's head around like what the expectations are, that's really, really important. And I go back to that why question of why, you know, and if the answer is, well, if I've just always had a job that's moderate income.
Sure.
I've worked, I made $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, and that's I'm an electrician and I work for a company, right?
Yep.
I'm never making like that big salary.
Yeah, I never worked for myself. Don't have an entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. Yep.
Yeah, yep. And so for me, that's important to understand, because then I kind of know where your space that you're in, like you're spending, like your come and go income as you gave a great example of like, well, maybe kids education was a priority, or maybe I had to take care of my elderly parents, or maybe I
illness in my own family.
Yep. Or maybe it was, we had some kind of issue, and we had a kid who needed extra money or extra attention, or things that whatever the reason is, you have to understand what you're dealing with.
Yep.
And it could be just like, I never thought it was important to save. I didn't care about money. I thought the world was going to end, or I was.
It snuck up on me. It happens. It happens to everybody. It snuck up on me.
So no matter what it is, your planner's going to ask why, and just so they can understand what they're dealing with, and then from there, and then after that point, it's almost like, okay, whatever happened back then, that matters in the sense that we understand what the picture is, but now it's like that's in the past. Now all I care about is looking forward.
Yep.
And because this is kind of the hump that it's hard to get over with people, where they're like, I don't need a plan. I don't need a plan. I don't need help. I'm just going to keep working, and I'm not going to think about it because it's too overwhelming to think about. But at that point, everybody, if you get over that hump and say, okay, look, whatever happened in the past, looking forward and going to what do you picture your retirement as?
Well, and to your point, right? This is a conversation, right? We are not making a decision, right?
Nope.
This is theoretical, right? This is the equivalent of saying, let's plan the vacation, right? No one's got a credit card out. No one's on Expedia. No one's locking anything down. This is just, let's have the conversation. And the conversation it's going to go where it goes, and it's going to have some parts of the conversation that are going to be like, well, that's a lot of work, right? I mean, if we're going to go to Bora Bora, we're going to be on a long flight. There's going to be some overnight stuff. That's a lot of travel time. That's a lot of luggage. That's a lot different than if we decide that we're going to go to Bermuda, right? Because Bermuda, we might get the same vibe, and I might not need to do all the work that goes into the whole Bora Bora trip, right?
I love your retirement analogies. The Bora Bora retirement. I'm actually literally thinking about that. I'm like, who's retiring in Bora Bora?
Well, I'm not saying, but
I know what you're saying.
But the analogy is that when you're talking to somebody, you can say, look, we're just talking about your retirement. There's the no work retirement where you're doing nothing every day but just get up and spending money. That's your Bora Bora retirement, right? And then there's the other retirement where you're working 60 hours a week, right? So where are we on that spectrum?
You're going from 40 to 60. Yeah,
you're going
enjoy.
Up. You're going up. Happy retirement, right?
Okay, so this brings me to my notes because it's almost like you studied for the quiz. So the definition of defining retirement, right?
Yep.
That's an important part of the next piece, right? Is saying, okay, what do you see? What is when all the dust settles, when all the smoke clears, what do you want your retirement? And someone may say, yeah, I'd love to never have to be able to work again. I'd love to not have to I'd love to just be able to go to Bora Bora, or I'd love to be able to be able to not have to earn income. And then that's where, when you're having this conversation, you say, okay, let's look at what that costs. Let's understand what that is, because you've probably seen this too. I've had people where they've like, yeah, I'm going to retire at 65. I've worked my whole life, and I'm going to retire at 65 just because that's the number that like my father retired at. Right?
It's in my head for a reason.
Yeah, and they don't really kind of have an understanding of kind of what the numbers and Social Security. And I'm going to collect Social Security, and my house will be paid off by then. And yeah, what? That's it, right? What else?
And that's their vision of retirement, because that's the only vision that they've ever been exposed to, and it's probably the vision they've talked about the most with their contemporaries, right? Because if they're in an employment situation that kind of just says, here's the natural end of your career, right? Numbers, time in the saddle versus your age means this is it, right? You hear a lot of guys say, I'm not adding to my pension anymore, right? The formula doesn't let me. I'll make more money if I work, but I'm not adding to my pension. My pension is my pension.
Yeah, so then like I'm working for kind of 10 cents or 30 cents on the dollar.
I'm working for free, right? Why am I bother? Well, you're still making money, but that's the decision that people. So that's what somebody's going through.
And they get to that. So when you're talking about that, this is where it's important to kind of say, okay, what do you see your retirement as? And like, okay, that's what you see as. Okay, now here let me help you frame what that actually looks like. What's the cost?
You beat me to it. We can put some numbers to what you have for a vision of retirement.
Yeah, and then you know, then it's the reality check,
Yeah.
and you say, okay, hey, so how much? So you think you're not going to work anymore? And okay, go on SSA.gov and tell me what your Social Security is, your projected Social Security at 65. I'll tell you what it is at 65, and at 65, oh by the way, you're not taking your full retirement benefit at that
Right.
point, because you're not taking Social Security till you're 67 at full retirement benefit. So which means that if you take your Social Security at 65, you're taking it early.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, yeah, but my Medicare starts at 65. I'm like, yep, Medicare starts at 65. Social Security, your income doesn't start, and your full retirement doesn't start at 67.
Well, and
until 67.
And depending on what your work history is like, there's an outside chance that we need to make sure that you got the quarters to qualify for the things that you think you're going to qualify for. And then the way the Social Security folks do the math, there could be a real benefit to you working for 1 or 2 or 3 more years. And so, yes, to your point, you need to wrap your head around what those numbers look like so that you can have a baseline comparison to fill in some of this vision.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit more about Social Security kind of and the application of Social Security and a little bit later in the show. But right now it's like, okay, so this is what you want to see, and here's the reality of it. Here's how much, and you told me you have this much money saved up. You have $50,000 in a Roth IRA or $50,000 in a bank account or something like that, right?
Yep.
So understanding the cost of what your lifestyle is going to, and I understand your house is paid off, and that's great because everybody, you know, they get to that point,
It's a big
and
goal.
that's a milestone, right? So what you could run into, where we often run into, is kind of this unrealistic, say, look, you think you can retire at 65 and live the lifestyle, live where you are, and it's just going to cost you too much. You're going to run out of money, and you're going to get to this point where you don't have enough money to continue that lifestyle or to live in that same place and live the way that you are without earning any more income.
Well, one of the big things that come up and that we ask when somebody talks about this, and this sounds obvious, but we try to approach everybody to say, look, in addition to what you're talking about in terms of what your activities and what your vision of your retirement looks like, you mentioned it a second ago, you paid off your house. So let's talk about your house as part of this conversation. Is your house a piece of real estate that you need to live in for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And it is sacrosanct, and you've built a wall around that, and that is not up for grabs? Or is your house a $500,000 asset that can be coordinated into this plan so that you can live your life, because there are options on the other side of that? Is that part of the discussion?
Yeah, and that's right, and that's all part of this. That's what needs to be part of this whole conversation.
Yeah, and to our point from earlier, I'm not saying you're selling it. I'm not locking you into some crazy decision. I'm saying if we do a plan and we run some projections that incorporate your house as an asset, then your retirement could look this way, right? Because we're late in the retirement. So because we're starting this whole conversation later, your house might be more in play than it would have been for somebody else. That's the discussion.
Yep. And the great thing about this, about doing this, is that it kind of forces the person, the client that you're talking to say, okay, yeah, maybe they're at the point where like, I never think about it, and I'm just going to keep working. I'm just going to work. And you're like, well, okay, that aside, what would be the perfect retirement for you?
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, it would be nice to not have to drive to Dorchester every day, or
Sure.
it'd be nice to not have to work for the city of Boston every day,
Yep.
or something like that. To do the job that I'm doing. It'd be nice to not have to work on the weekends or whatever.
Yep.
Whatever your job is. You say, okay, let's see if we can. Let's see what it takes to get there, and then let's see what. And then if there's something that's just unrealistic, they say, okay, what can we compromise on? And that's all that is we're just trying to get to this reasonable plan that essentially you may be able to get to. And when someone says to me, hey, I don't have there's no chance for me to be able to retire. There's nothing I can do that can enable me to retire. That's where I'll always say, I disagree with you.
I completely agree with you.
Let's sit down and take a look at this, because there's things that you can do, and even little things, even tiny things that you can do that can make a difference down the road, that can enable you to get to that place, or at least a place that's close to where you're, where that nirvana retirement is.
Well, you bring up a great point, which is, and you hate to ask the question this way, but we always speak truth, right? So the question is, okay, we talked about what do you think your vision of your retirement will look like, But the other part of that question is, how serious are you about this?
Yeah.
Okay? Because we can have the discussion. We can talk about, this is like going to the gym, right? How committed are you to the project,
I'm
right?
going to bench 450.
Okay.
Yeah, every time.
Not today, you're not going to. But in 6 months,
Don't
maybe,
touch it.
Right?
Don't
But in
touch it. Don't
6
touch it.
months,
I don't
maybe.
need a spot. I don't need a spot.
This is the same conversation. We're going to talk about some things, right? We're going to talk about whether or not your house is going to be an asset as part of this project. We're going to talk about what your work schedule looks like and how long you might be working. And are you committed to some of the changes that we're going to talk about if it gets you there?
Right? And those conversations, like digging into that,
that's uncomfortable.
That helps it.
It's uncomfortable, but it helps fill in the blanks.
It's uncomfortable, but at the same time, how often have you found it where it's like they're like, I finally talked about this. I haven't talked. Of course, I don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. Once I do, and once you're able to kind of do some reality check with things and be able to like have the conversation and say, okay, well maybe you're not going to retire in Miami, but you're going to retire someplace a little bit warmer than here. And there's ways to do that. And you have the capability to do that, like, because you say, well, yeah, my house, we don't want to live here. We want to live somewhere else. Like, okay, well, guess what? Your house is worth X amount of dollars. There's a way we can possibly get you to where you want to go using your house and whatever other assets you have. So the next piece of this, next portion of this is like when someone says, okay, all right, here's where I want to get to, but I don't think I have any chance of doing it. This is where, you, Jay, and I as the planners will come in and be like, hey, look, here's some things that you can do. Let's start with these. Let's understand, let's get a real good understanding of what your assets are and what your assets aren't.
Yep.
And then we'll start building that plan.
Yeah. What are your income sources going to be? Is the entire plan based around Social Security? Is the entire plan based around, is there a pension coming along with this? Yes, no. Are there inheritances out there hanging around that nobody wants to think about, but could possibly factor into what your plan looks like, right?
Right.
And what's your household income look like, or what can we make it look like?
All right, so we're going to take a quick break and we're going to circle back and come and dig and dive really deep into this and give you kind of just some pearls of wisdom in applying this and being able to get to that plan where potentially you could actually reach what that new definition of your retirement nearby.
Pull you out of the fire, baby.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull you out of the fire.
All right, so don't go away. Stay with us. This is really important stuff because, like you said, we said, it's not like one or the other because many people fall in between these, right?
Sure.
So all of these pearls of wisdom that we're given, you may not be the person who never saved for retirement, or you may be the person who saved everything.
But you might know somebody.
But in between all this stuff, it could apply to you too. So don't go away.
We're going to keep hope alive.
We'll be right back.
And we're back. My FM 101.3.
So
Jay
fast.
Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Mainnet for Financial. Tom making us look skinny and handsome with like camera and filters and lighting and all that other stuff over there.
How skinny am I?
Magic that he works.
Looking good, right?
Yeah.
He's got this little tiny camera, like this little viewfinder.
Put you like squeezes you into this little. What is everything around you is when you look at the film, everything around you is bigger, makes you look smaller.
Yeah,
That's what he does.
I'm like a TikTok meme, right? Yeah, like.
Was that the old joke from Rodney Dangerfield when he was in Back to School? I got to get bigger actors. They can put on some weight. They got to get bigger actors.
Yeah, he's like, you want to be thin? Hang out with fat people.
Oh, Rodney. We miss him.
Right? You miss Rodney. And Back to School, that was another one of those pioneer humor, right? But the early Robert Downey Jr. Remember?
Yeah.
That's classic.
Yeah.
Classic
And he just had
humor.
nothing but hysterical one-liners. They basically said, if we could take your onstage act and squeeze that into a movie, we're going to do it. How do we do it, right? And that's what they did, right? So that was.
Speaking of Robert Downey Jr., so is this the movie review part of the?
Sure. Why not?
Have you seen the movie Oppenheimer?
I have
yet?
seen Oppenheimer.
Yeah, we just watched it last night. What's your take on Oppenheimer, real quick?
I liked it. I thought it was really good. I mean, I'm a fan of that type of sort of historical, storytelling. So I found that fascinating. I found the science behind it fascinating. I found that whole time in the history of the United States. That whole, I'm a junkie for the World War II and then sort of the post World War II kind of rearranging all the deck chairs. I thought it was fascinating. I'm not going to worry about how accurate, not accurate. I'm not going to
I don't
worry
care.
about that. The story was the story. I mean,
Right.
they got most of it right, and and they had some great actors, and so
It was an
it's a real
all-star
cast.
cast.
All-star cast. So it was. But the thing that always fascinates me about the discussion around the atomic bomb was that and about a lot of the things that went on at that time between the space race and things like that. And it was just one of those like, yeah, we're going to test it. This is what we think is going to happen. We're pretty certain that things are going to go the way that we think they're going to go, and that it's going to happen the way it's supposed to happen. There is an outside chance that when we light the fuse, we do melt the entire planet.
Yeah.
There is a concern. We have a little bit of a concern about that, but we're still, we're willing to give it a go,
right.
and we'll see what happens. And so I think about that, and then I think about like the Apollo missions, and you read now about, I mean, just the companies that are now just trying to send cargo into space and get satellites launched and landing like orbiters and rovers, on
easy stuff,
on either
right?
the Martian surface or the lunar surface, and it obviously doesn't go the way they want it to go, right? And so I think about that, and then I think about a couple of guys climbing into this capsule, right? Sitting on top of how many bajillions of gallons of fuel, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
saying
of rocket fuel.
That's right. And saying, okay, so you guys are going to I'm going to end up there, right? And not only am I going to end up there theoretically, but you guys you're good, right? Like the getting there part, important, right? Equally important, the getting me back part, right?
And you're putting all your faith on a bunch of guys wearing short sleeve button down shirts with ties on and glasses and male pattern balding going, yeah, you're good. You're good. Thumbs up.
We ran the numbers.
We like what we see over here.
The math works, right? The math works.
Yeah, the math works because I use this slide rule because there's no such thing as a calculator.
And this is what blows
remarkable.
my mind. Like
Remarkable.
This is like when you go to the Air and Space Museum and you see the capsule.
Yeah.
Hanging in the Air and Space Museum, and you see what these guys accomplished with the technology that is like a fraction of the technology that we have in an iPhone today.
Sure.
And they did it.
They
And so you had the guys that believed enough in themselves to attempt to do it, and then you had the guys who believed in the math guys to say, yeah, I'll climb inside that thing.
Right.
Let's give it a whirl.
That's
I'll climb inside
not
it.
to give. I mean, the Oppenheimer movie, there's not a big giveaway. It's
No,
just,
no, yeah,
but
it worked.
It's
It
funny
worked.
how they, how Oppenheimer and Einstein were like, yeah, we don't really like math. Yeah, we're not that good at math.
Theoretical guys.
Yeah, we don't love math like you other guys do, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's all math.
Yep.
Right. It's all math, and then it's like, well, you know what? There is. So will the Earth blow up? Well, there's 99 point whatever percentage, but it's not 100%.
Yep.
And you're like, well, what do you mean? Why not 100%? And you're like, well, because it's not, because our math doesn't go that far.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yep. And I forget one of the astronauts, one of the guys who was in one of the capsules, when they were shooting across the galaxy, and he's like, hey, not bad for a bunch of stuff that was done at the lowest possible bidding rate,
Well,
right? Like it's all covering contracts, right?
That's a classic.
It's a whole
classic
nother,
Army line, right?
Yeah.
This is always, everything goes to the lowest bidder, right here. Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly right. So not bad for a bunch of things. So anyway,
yeah, I enjoyed the movie. And again, the Christopher Nolan spin on it, where there's a lot of back and forth with like the different time. That got a little tedious. Tedious in the sense, and we watched it. Do your kids watch stuff with the subtitles?
Not at all.
So my kids are psycho about anything they watch, and it drives me crazy. I'm like, I want to watch a movie. I don't want to read, right? However, in Oppenheimer, it worked for me last night just because of all the names that there's so many characters that play, especially like all the European scientists that they were talking about. You're like, who are these? Trying to keep track.
I thought a lot of the stuff that they talked about when they kept going back and talking about what was going on and the Red Scare and all this other stuff. I thought a lot of that was a little bit too topical.
Yeah,
that was in a frightening way. Frightening way that we live in this world now where people just don't live in people aren't living in the world of facts anymore, And there's a lot of stuff that just, so this is the stuff that stuff scares me.
And the same thing was happening right back then,
Yeah.
right? The same thing, like the whole Joe McCarthy era, and like
Yep.
and how the whole Oppenheimer and the whole his connection to the Communist Party, and it's funny because Haley, who's not like, she's not a big historian, but she says to me, I didn't get why they were so like banged up about him being connected to the Communist Party, like. That was what everybody was afraid of.
Oh, that was the fear.
That was the driving fear from the day the Japanese surrendered, like, all the way up until the Berlin Wall fell.
Yep.
That was communism was going to be that was our next big. That was the whole entire Cold War.
That was the next big battle. Yeah. So that stuff made
good movie. You gotta dig in for it. Cillian Murphy does a good job. He's Cillian Murphy. He's Peaky Blinders. I wanted him to do some Peaky Blinders stuff, but that just didn't happen.
Take somebody
because he looks. He's the same build, right?
No. He's wearing the same clothes essentially, right? Nothing has changed at all.
Same, except his accent, right?
No hat.
You don't have your cool accent, right? You don't have your Peaky Blinder hat, yeah. So, have you seen Oppenheimer?
I have.
All right. So, what do you think?
I don't know. The court scene's kind of.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like the whole the hearing with
You have to be a buff.
You gotta want it.
Yeah, you gotta want it because
you gotta want
it moves a little slow. Good movie, don't get me wrong, but if you don't know what you're getting into, if you think you're getting into the Barbie movie, it's a different animal.
Yeah.
So it moves. You got to be prepared to settle in for the.
I can't imagine
for the long slog.
That was like a thing, right, where people were going to see Barbie and Oppenheimer in the same theater in the same night.
Two ends of the spectrum.
Woo,
yeah,
that's a workout. Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
So if you're retired and you have nothing but time on your hands, you can do this. You can go see both of these movies.
You sure can.
But if you got a late start and you think you're going to be working at the theater, handing out the tickets so the other people can go see those movies, that's part of this conversation.
Which they don't do anymore, by the way.
That's a whole different. Right. Well, then you can't retire. If that was your plan, if you love the movies and that was your plan,
think of a different retirement.
It's a different animal, right?
All right. So let's talk. We're talking about the late planning, like the
late
kind
start.
of the late bloomers, right? The late start of like, okay, I haven't really thought about retirement. I haven't done a lot of work for it. So here's some of the things that Jay and I are going to kind of help you to think about and help you to understand. So the first thing is, most people, we said this earlier, most people are basing their retirement, if they have no other income source or guaranteed income source, the one thing that most people do have is Social Security.
Correct.
All right, so oftentimes people don't really have a clear understanding of the way Social Security works, or they think they know what it is, and they think, and we kind of use the example of, I'm going to retire at 65, and then and just understanding that if I'm going to retire at 65, meaning I'm going to start collecting my Social Security at 65, you're not going to your Social Security. You're not taking the full Social Security benefits. So just a quick review of Social Security for everybody, right? So I can start taking it at 62, which is early. Right?
Early, yep.
That's early
Decreased
Social
benefit.
Security. And it's a decreased benefit. And remember, the thing with Social Security is once I ring that bell, I can't unring it. So
for the most part, yep.
So once I say, hey, I'm start taking my Social Security right now, then that's when it starts, and I can't undo that most of the time. So but the other really important thing about taking early Social Security, remember, if I take it at 62, if I take it at 63, 64, 65, that's considered early. Full retirement benefit, or full retirement is as Social Security terms it, starts at age 67, or if you're born before 1960, then it goes back to 66 in a couple of months. But for most people that we're talking about now, it's going to be 67 is the full retirement. And what that means is that if I wait till 67, that means that if I earn any more income, it doesn't matter. I can earn $1 million a year. I'm still not going to get any Social Security reductions, any reduction on my Social Security. If I take it any time before that, between 62 and 67, we're talking about that 65, then I'm taking it early. Right? And by taking it early, it means that if I earn over a certain amount of income, and the income level is about $18,000 and change, if I make more than $18,000 in a year, then every dollar that I make more than that $18,000, I'm going to get taxed on my current Social Security.
So let's repeat that again. That's important for people to understand.
Really important. I thought you were going to read it.
No.
Okay, so if I take if I take Social Security before 67, if I take it early, any of that time between 62 and 67, then I am going to pay taxes on any money that I earned income over $18,000. So the issue is that now if you have investments or if you have rental property and you're getting income from things like that, or if you're getting a pension or anything like that, that's not earned income. That's all passive income. So that doesn't count. It's if I say I'm age 65 and then I'm going to go get a job at the movie theater.
Right.
And let's say I'm a manager of the movie theater, or let's say I'm a salesperson and I sell movie theaters or whatever, and I make more than $18,000 and I'm taking my I've already started taking my Social Security before 67. I'm going to pay taxes on everything over. I'm going to get my Social Security is going to get taxed, meaning $1 for every $2 that I make is going to get taxed.
And and that's important because a lot of people are going to say, well, John, I'm just going to get one of those, under the hat jobs. I'm going to get paid off the book, blah, 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 blah. Whatever you did, that's fine. That's a whole different approach to this plan. The important thing is if you're just thinking in terms of straight income, this is where the tax piece is important.
Yeah. So that's important to understand. So when someone's like, all right, well, I'm going to retire, in my mind, in my retirement picture, it's going to be 65, then the first question will be, are you still going to work? Are you is your retirement is going to have you still working? Maybe not doing the job, and oftentimes that's what we find, right? People they don't do the job that their job where they're working for the man, but they do something else.
Yeah.
So, and that job may be a part-time job, and that job may be something that they're not going to earn more than $18,000. And if not, then it comes into the conversation. Then as long as you understand it and you say, look, if you start taking Social Security early, and granted this works for you because you're not gonna continue to work and make more than $18,000. This could be a possibility for you.
Yeah, and it all starts with this, right? Because this is exactly what the conversation is, and what your plan is for retirement, what your design around your retirement factors into this, because the answer might be you thought about taking it at 62. Let's crunch some numbers to see whether or not the waiting 5 years or even longer is to your advantage, especially if you're going to be working. If your plan was to work in retirement anyway, you might pump the brakes on taking Social Security because it's going to pay benefits or pay dividends to you longer, better down the road.
Yeah, which usually takes us into the next thing is, well, if I start taking it early, then it's going to take me 9 years before I make up the difference if I wait till age 67. So that's where I'll put the brakes on people and I'll say, look, when it comes to Social Security, we treat it as an income source versus an asset. If I'm looking at it as like, well, I want to get the most out of Social Security, then now you're looking at it as an asset versus an income source. And then I just ask the question, okay, would you rather have $1,800 a month, or would you rather have $2,600 a month? Or even better, do you need to make $2,600 a month based on your estimates, or are you okay with 18?
Yeah, you could be at the tail end of your mortgage and say, look, you know what? If I take the Social Security early, that's going to help me get to the finish line and pay off my mortgage. Well, then there's a real value to potentially doing that as opposed to waiting. It's all part of everyone's individual analysis.
Yeah. So the idea of waiting of making sure the rule of thumb is this: you take Social Security when you need it, right? You take it when you need it. So going back to Jay's point, when someone says, okay, well, all right, I'm still gonna be working and I'm gonna be earning enough money to where I can make ends meet, then I'd say, well, listen, why don't you wait to take Social Security? Why don't you kick that can down the road a little bit? And we've talked about this before. Say, look, you know what? If you're in your mind you were going to take it at 65, and you're like, absolutely, I'm taking it at 65, and then you kind of talk to us and say, hey, look, all right, well, maybe 65 isn't a smart thing because I'm going to be earning over the top of that $18,000 threshold.
Yeah.
So then you say, okay, great, I get that. Let's do this. Instead of taking it at 65, let's not take it then and see where we are in 6 months. See what everything feels like. See if you've changed jobs, right? But the most important question is, do you need it, right? And that's always the thing that carries the day is you take Social Security when you need it. someone may be like, look, I can't work. I get to 62 and I can't work
Right.
because of health issues, because of my family situation, because of whatever the reason. And you're like, yeah, I need the money. And don't worry, I'm not concerned about earning more money than, over the $18,000 threshold and getting taxed, because I'm not going to have earned income.
Right.
At this point, I can't have earned income.
Well, I feel like the Social Security discussion is very much like the mortgage discussion, right? We've talked about the mortgage issue on the show all the time. Do you pay it off? Don't you pay it off? And it's what do you want to do, right? We can do the arbitrage game and what's your rate and what are you going to earn all day long. Some people just say, look, I want to pay off my house. I want the security that having a roof over my head is going to bring me by doing it. So you just do that. The Social Security conversation is the same exact way. Do you want it? Do you need it? Forget the ROI, forget the return, forget this. There's too many variables to worry about. Do you need it? If you need it, take it. If you don't need it, then let's talk about it.
If you don't need it, then don't take it. And then, going back to when we first started the show, we talked about the people who have all the money in the world and have all the pension, and they also qualify for full Social Security, yada, yada, yada. So those people, they may get to 62 and be like, I don't need it.
Right.
But you know what? If I take it at 62 or at 67, I'm still not going to need it.
Right.
And if I wait till age 70, it's not going to matter. It's not going
Right.
to change anything, right? So I'm going to make an extra $800 or $2,000, $1,000 a month. It doesn't matter. So at that point, we'll tell those people, if you don't need it, take it early.
Some people take it and gift it.
Yeah, you could take
Say,
it.
look,
Yeah,
you know what?
right. You can
There's
take
a
it,
whole
do
bunch
what
of
you
things
want.
you can do with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the Social Security piece. Is it 54 minutes already?
I think this is a two-show topic.
This is a two-part
Two-show topic.
Two-show topic.
It's a two-show
So,
topic.
well, we threw in the Oppenheimer stuff too.
That threw us off. That threw us off. Right. Yep.
And it's interesting.
So unlike that, so much like the topic, if you were a little bit unprepared for retirement, we're a little unprepared for the timing on the show today.
Yeah.
So we're going to make it a two-topic show.
Exactly.
love
See,
it.
we're kicking it down. I love that.
That's how
the
we roll,
connection.
brother.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So stay tuned for part 2 of late bloomer retirement or late retirement planning person.
Late start is what it.
That's
we
what
call
that's
it.
what the
Yeah,
late
I'm
start.
just trying
yeah.
to keep you consistent there.
The golden
You
bucket
got like
of gold.
you got like
right?
9 topics in this thing. It's good.
Yeah. Late start retirement.
Late start retirement, baby.
All right. Tune in next week. We're going to do late start retirement round 2. All right. Everybody have a great weekend.
Have a great
You
week.
have a great weekend. Tommy, you have a great weekend. We'll see everybody next week on Money in the Law, My FM 101.3.
I love it. We'll see you then.